Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 60 for August 4th, 2017. Hey everyone, Deanna Rubino here, joined by Zach Bowden for another exciting week of the Windows Central Podcast. This week we got a few stories, including yet another fast ring build that came out with some kind of unique features that are kind of interesting, and we are finally approaching, dare we say, RTM. The abbreviation that should not be uttered. We'll also talk about groove visualizations and an equalizer making its triumphant debut. Well, almost. It's not here yet, but it's coming real soon. This is very exciting, though, for you Zune legacy people out there who just will not let it go. We'll also talk about $1,000 phones and how a few years ago people were making fun, at least had the idea of Microsoft releasing possibly a theoretical device that would cost more than $1,000. And now, as it turns out, Apple, Samsung, Red, and everybody in the world is going to be releasing phones that go well past $1,000 next couple of months. We'll talk about the impact of that on the mobile industry and why that is significant, regardless of whatever Microsoft actually does. We'll talk about Zach's Asus E200 HAE review, which just rolls off the tongue, Asus. Just a beautiful name there. And we'll talk about my Chewy lap book, which, see, now there's a company that actually gets a name. Sure, it's derivative, but the lapbook is pretty cool. It's actually the lapbook 12.3 since they have different sizes of that device. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am pretty annoyed because I've spent the last 6 hours trying to install the new build on a device which I used to record the build videos, and it's just failed. Well, actually, it hasn't failed. There's some odd bug with installing builds. Some people hit them, some people hit it, other people don't. But essentially what happens is the build downloads, the build's prepared to install. It gets to 100%. Then it says, hey, the build's ready to install. Restart now. You press restart. Usually it'll take you to the working on update screen and then install the build and then get you to the new build. But in my case, it just restarts the computer. So I have an update pending, but Windows doesn't realize there's an update pending and just restarts the PC like normal. So I've been trying to troubleshoot that for the last 6 hours and have failed miserably. So now I'm just going to install it via ISO.
We tried pulling the plug and restarting your device. No,
yes.
Have you removed any printers or fax machines?
Tell you what I did. I threw the device out the window. That's what I did.
That's kind of weird. I actually had no problem installing. Now, let's talk about that for a brief second, because we haven't really addressed this, which is the new style of installation, which is driving hardcore insiders nuts. So what happens now, it's really interesting, is the download happens very fast thanks to the new, what is it, UUP?
Unified Update Platform.
Yeah, so because of that, the update downloads very quickly because it's only downloading the parts necessary to update the OS, which is super convenient. However, the installation seemingly takes longer, and the reason for that is because they're running the upgrade in the background now, so it jumps onto your smaller, teenier cores and prioritizes whatever you're doing. And the rationale there is actually very smart. It's for normal humans, which are not insiders. So for normal people, you don't typically want to download an update and have it install and jank up all your work, meaning if you're writing in Word or you're browsing the web, you don't want to have stutters and things slow down. So they're optimizing this for that scenario. Insiders, however, are throwing hissy fits because they happen to like to watch the installation as it occurs in real time. And so when they're watching that progress bar, it is now very painful because the processes have been relegated to the background. So an update, admittedly, does take a long time now, or it seems like it. And so I know my Surface laptop here, I have one with a Core i7. It actually did take, 60 minutes, maybe a little over an hour to do the update. Not the download. The installation part was just very, very slow. So
I feel like Microsoft could make this dependent on whether you're an insider or not, because they do that with the blue screen of death. If you're a consumer, it's a blue screen. If you're an insider, it's a green screen.
So Jason Howard, I think, addressed this. They are exploring ways to make that happen. But right now, they want to kind of get feedback on this process.
Feedback, it sucks.
Yeah, right. But they want to see if it's working and everything like that. But they are exploring a way to streamline this for insiders who we all know love to complain about everything. I think it's a smart decision, but I totally get it. I mean, like I said, I saw this last night. I was updating my Surface laptop, and sure, it was relatively painful. I also want to point out this week there was just before Zach gets to his rant, which will go very fast, I'm sure, with all the new stuff. There were a cumulative update for those on production and release preview as well, which had a lot of bug fixes, but that came out for mobile as well as the fast ring for mobile also did get an update. We don't want to forget that, but I do want to address one bug that was fixed, thankfully, that I've seen forever. And honestly, I haven't tested it yet. I still got to update my Elite X3. I got it right here. I'll probably do this live during the podcast. Stop that. It's on fast. Did it download the update? Let's see. No, it sees it. I'm going to download it now. So this bug that got addressed was really cool, annoying. It was for me at least, I would take a photo, and then when I would go rotate the screen to view it, the screen would go black. And it was just and so, yeah. And then if I rotated it back, it would kind of appear. And it was like hit and miss, right? So it would only happen sometimes. And some people saw this when watching video. So clearly something with the video driver was going on here with switching landscape and portrait. I've seen this bug forever. I almost don't remember a time when this phone didn't have it. But it was not all the time. But it looks like they fixed that both for production and for those on the fast ring. So way to go, Microsoft, on still improving.
Yeah, they also fixed a bug with the Elite X3 that the device would just randomly forget that it has an SD card in it and say, oh, the SD card's been disconnected. That's a bug that's been plaguing Elite X3 users since it launched, and I thought it was a HP issue. I thought it was something to do with their firmware.
A lot of people thought it was the tray being loose.
Yeah, I thought that too. I was almost tempted to send back my device again. I got a faulty SIM
you would have done that just for your oleophobics.
I would have. That's true. But it turns out it was a Windows issue. I don't know. I guess it was a Windows issue because it's fixed now and via the latest Feature 2 build. So that's good to see. Speaking of new builds, let's talk about the new PC build for Windows 10. This build, again, so we're heading towards the end of Redstone 3 development now, so these builds are getting less and less exciting. There was a new feature, quite an interesting new feature in this build, eye control, which is currently in beta. So what this is, it's for those who use the ease of access features, so those who may not be able to move easily. This essentially tracks your eyes and you can control Windows with your eyeballs. Now, right now at least, it uses the Tobii eye tracker devices. I think it's the Eye Tracker 4C. More devices will be coming in the future, but if you have one of those Eye Tracker 4C devices, you can set this up on build 16.257. And what this does is once you set it up and install the Tobii Eye Tracker software, you can jump into the settings app, go down to ease of access, other options, and turn on control Windows with your eyes. And once you do this, I have tried this briefly. I'll be doing a more detailed video on it later today, hopefully, if I can get the build to install. And what that does is you'll get like a little bar at the top of the screen, and if you've got the tracker set up correctly, you'll see that if you look at those elements at the top of the screen, those elements will activate. They are now being controlled with your eyes. Now, it's not natively controlling the system, so I can't just look at the start button and the start button will open. I have to manually.
Lame.
Yeah, well, I have to look up at the virtual mouse thing that it sets up. Then I have to sort of casually look in the area where I want the mouse to select. Then it gives me a control where I can precisely select where I want to go. It's a little bit of I'd call a hassle, but you've got to remember this isn't for normal people. This isn't a new way of using your PC. This is an alternative method for those who may not have the luxury of using a mouse and keyboard every day like you and I. So
Having said that, let's talk about a second about Tobii. So I've actually met with Tobii before. I believe it was last year. They're actually a very interesting company that, they primarily built this technology originally for people with disabilities who were unable to use their full motor capabilities for operating things like computers. But they also use that technology for gaming. And so there are high-end gaming laptops that have this little tool built into the screen. It's right below the screen. And so you can use it for gaming. It's actually kind of cool where for a first-person shooter, for instance, all you need to do is look wherever you look on the screen and fire, it will track your eyes, and that's where it'll point to. You can think of super clever stuff like this. There are the military's used stuff like this for a long time, but they used it with helmets. So the AH-1 Apache helicopter, one of my favorites, would have this where you would look and the gun would follow, which is pretty badass. But you can use it for gaming, which is kind of cool. There are also other games where, like, if you look and then you hit jump, it'll jump in that direction. Yeah, and Zach's showing it off there in the video. You can see it, which is creepy because I see myself in the reflex.
It's pretty long, I'll be honest. It's like longer than a 30-centimeter ruler, put it that way.
Yeah, so you can buy this device on Amazon and other sites, and what it does is it just plugs in USB. Now, I don't know, so the one I had, the problem, and yours may be the newer version, is it does require a lot of power through the USB, and I always ran into issues with it needing more power for the draw. But you just it comes with a little magnetic strip you attach to your monitor through a sticker, and this thing just sticks on, which is cool because you can take it on and off if you need to. But then it plugs in, and they do have a suite of Windows controls you can install. So you can actually move your mouse cursor and do some basic Windows stuff with it too. Right. It's fun to play. I mean, I'm not saying rush out and buy it. This goes up there with my GPD Pocket. It's not nearly as expensive. How much does it cost now?
I got this for 130 or 140 pounds. I don't know what that would translate to in dollars. It's not incredibly expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap either. But yeah, if you have some extra cash, you want to have some fun. It's a cool thing that you can do. And if you go to the Tobii website, it's TOBII. They do have a list of games that support it, and it is becoming a thing. When I met with them, I was super impressed with the technology. It works very well. It's very useful. And I'm really happy to bring it all together now. I'm really happy to see them working with Microsoft, because I told Microsoft when I met them, I was just like, have you seen what Tobii is doing with this stuff? Like, you should either buy them or just integrate their technology into your stuff, because you can do a lot of cool things with it.
Right. It is worth noting that the work Microsoft is doing with the Tobii hardware isn't related to the stuff that Tobii is doing itself. Like Dan says, the Tobii software, which you need to install for these stuff with Windows to start working, actually has additional functionality more for consumers, such as things like if you glance at a notification, that notification will know to dismiss after a second or two because you've seen it now, stuff like that. But what Microsoft is specifically working on natively in Windows 10 is more on the accessibility side for those who can't use mouse and keyboard stuff. So I'll be demoing all of this in more detail in a more detailed video, which hopefully by the time, if you're watching this on Monday, should be up on the channel. So yeah, very interesting and exciting stuff indeed. There's also a change in the build. Microsoft Edge now has a fluent designed title bar, and it looks pretty cool. It's very subtle. It's much more subtle than what it was.
I was going to say, I'm looking at it right now. I do not notice.
It's much more subtle than it was in the internal builds. In the internal builds, I was shown off. Some people showed me some things where the title bar and even the address bar was slightly transparent as well. That doesn't appear to be the case in the public build, so they've obviously fine-tuned that. But yeah, then there's some console improvements. Apparently, you can now change the colors of the console, the Windows console. So there you go. And then a lot of just general changes and improvements and fixes. So as I said, I
like the with the address bar, and now is that new where you hover over it and it turns white?
No, that's not new.
I know they changed a lot with the opaqueness of that bar and like how it changed its background, because I think it used to always be white all the time, and they did this in the store too, where it's changed color. I don't know. There's little things I'm noticing. Oh, wow.
Right. Apparently, support for 3D is now in Office apps, starting with this build, or at least with Office Insiders. So that's something worthy of note. But apart from that, that's pretty much it for this week's build. So yeah, the eye control stuff is definitely the most interesting new feature in this build. It is kind of weird if you've never tried it before, because this is the first time I've tried it today. It makes you want to move your head as well, but I don't think you're supposed to. I think you're supposed to just look in the areas where you're looking at the screen, which is sort of unnatural, if I'm honest. But again, this isn't for people like you and me. This is for people who can't move, who might not be able to move from the neck down and stuff. So there you go.
Anything else?
That's it. That's the build.
That's it. Oh, okay. Sounds well. I mean, in terms of stability, I'm actually enjoying it. I haven't had any weird issues specifically with Edge. seems to be going pretty well. So
it's probably also worth noting that the skip ahead stuff, which Microsoft announced either last week or the week before, I can't remember, that is now closed. So if you were an insider who wanted to skip ahead to the Redstone 4 development branch but haven't done so yet, you are now locked out. You will no longer be able to do that. Microsoft has reached capacity for that ring, I guess you'd call it. So you will be remaining on Redstone 3. If you are an insider that did opt in to skip ahead before the door was shut earlier today, then yes, you will continue to receive Redstone 4 builds through the rs_pre-release branch. Now, if you reset your PC or reinstall Windows, I think you might lose that status, so be careful. But if you're planning to just leave your PC as is, you should be good to go through Redstone 4 from here on out. So good luck with that.
I have one device on skip ahead, just my Surface Book, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But we should also mention there was an issue with inbox apps this week. Did you see that?
I did. Let me see if I can pull that up. You try and quickly summarize.
So what happened is some people on fast and slow ring, they should not be receiving the new inbox app experiences. And if you're unfamiliar with what inbox apps are, it's a weird term. It's Microsoft internal kind of stuff. It just means what you and I would call native apps. So MSN News, Skype, the store, Photos app, all the things that kind of come built into Windows 10 but are also treated as separate apps. So because they're planning for the Fall Creators update and they changed how this works, that the slow and fast ring are getting the new bits for the OS, but not the new bits for the apps. And it's a little bit annoying because if you're on release preview, you can. But what happened was some people on fast ring and slow ring evidently did get the new inbox apps experience. And so if you're curious what some of those are, I already reported on them. So for instance, Photos app is getting a new search bar, and it actually indexes and uses smart search, which is really impressive. So you can type in cat and it'll search through all your photos and be like, hey, here's a cat. And 9 times out of 10, it's pretty accurate. So that is coming. But if you're on fast ring, you haven't seen that yet, at least some of you. There was an early release, but it's been gone for a while. There's been some changes in Groove. There's been a new store UI, which I did a story on last week, which looks way better, by the way. It's they just shifted some menus around and they changed it. Instead of being jet black, it is now dark gray. So if you do see those and you're on fast ring, congratulations, you're not supposed to. And so what Microsoft is doing is they're going to take it away from you.
I love this. This is the funniest part about this whole story.
Yeah, so at some point your store will update those apps and revert to the current production release of those apps, which is a little unfortunate.
Yeah.
So they're just giving a warning that you may see some features literally disappear, and that's okay. You'll get them back in a few weeks.
This is Microsoft reasoning because it is critical that insiders are experiencing the same versions of the apps that will be released as the default for all Windows customers when we release the Windows 10 Full Creators updates. We are releasing updates to the inbox apps that restores them to what they were previously. All inbox apps will be impacted by this and could see a loss of some UX and features. So basically, you're going backwards now.
Well, no, the funny thing is I don't have any, like the computer I'm on right now doing this podcast is on fast ring. I've not seen any of those apps come through. So I don't think it's a widespread issue. It's not like everybody's on fast ring, all your apps that you're currently running are going to revert back. It's a small subset of users for some of these native apps. And a lot of these changes are super small. Like the movies and TV app apparently has some changes in padding and the menu layout and like spacing, things you're probably not even notice or miss. But yeah, it is kind of funny. I still find it a little bit frustrating how you can be on release preview and skip ahead and get those cool new in-app, because I think they're more interesting.
It's worth noting that the insiders on skip ahead will not be affected by this change. Microsoft will continue to flight the new preview apps and stuff. So those in skip ahead, one of the reasons why skip ahead exists is so Microsoft can flight these pre-release preview builds of apps to you as well as builds, whereas the fast ring without skip ahead is basically Microsoft trying to test Windows 10 stock as much as possible. So you get the latest stable-ish builds from RS3 release, and you get the inbox apps, which do not get any updates because that's the shipping versions of the apps for that release. So yeah, goodbye apps if you're in the normal fast ring. But that shouldn't remain. That should change after the full creators update has been finalized. It's worth noting, even though Skip Ahead is closed now for new participants, once the full creators update is done and pushed out to insiders, and indeed when it starts running out to the public, Microsoft will start pushing Redstone 4 builds to all insiders, just like they did with Redstone 3 and Redstone 2 and so on. So
should also mention that Skip Ahead was closed because they just don't want all the fast ring people jumping into it. Right. So yeah, the bottom line here with this, all this stuff we just talked about with the insider program, is remember, you're still part of an experiment, and Microsoft controls that experiment, and they're going to manipulate the sample pool according to their needs. So I know it's not ideal. You just, some people want fast ring just to be, and they've done this in surveys. They've asked people, like, why are you here, basically? And there is probably a large group of users who are like, I just want the latest stuff right now on my computer. And technically now Skip Ahead is that for you. But ultimately, they have a goal here. This is not just here, have this stuff early so you can just be cool and have it early. It's so they can collect data and make things better. So that's why all these changes. It's a little bit unfortunate if you're expecting that, but should have jumped in Skip Ahead.
Speaking of app updates,
so we all regret Skip Ahead in a couple of weeks, and we start getting the bid.
Yeah, Microsoft did recommend not to do Skip Ahead if you're using it on a main PC, because essentially what it is Microsoft's kickstarting the next wave of preview builds earlier than usual. So if you remember back when Redstone 1, 2, and whatever were in development, Redstone 1 would finish development, then not long after, Redstone 2 builds would begin, and those builds would get progressively more buggy throughout development, then obviously get better towards the end. It's the same thing happening here with the new builds, which are for Redstone 4. So speaking of app updates, actually, Dan has some stuff to talk about Groove. Apparently Groove is getting some awesome new features and changes and whatever, which we're pretty excited about.
Yeah, so, at the end of 2016, I put Groove down on my list of most improved apps, and it was actually up there with people who are going to hate me for this, but saying Skype too. I still think the Skype UWP app is still way better than what it was when it first came out. They've done a lot of things. I think people just don't like Skype, but that's a separate issue. Groove, however, has been making a lot of inroads, and it did pause for a little while. It seemed like, okay, we haven't seen anything new for a while. Are they kind of done with this? And there's a lot of weird questions about Groove. Groove is still like why are they doing this? And I say that not being snarky because I love Groove. I've been using it ever since it came out. I'm an original Zune user and owner. So I'm actually on board with it. The reason I say what's going on is because Microsoft doesn't even have its own Groove Twitter account. And so there's no public push for Groove. There's no ads for it. They're not really trying to court, Android and iOS users. Sure, they have apps there, but they're not actively, promoting it. But now we saw a new push. There's been a lot of new stuff coming to Groove. So we did our report about the music videos. So first, videos came back. They would automatically play if you enabled it. Now there's a video section, which is kind of cool. And now there's a bunch of other changes coming too. So smart playlists. So you basically punch in a bunch of artists you like. Think Pandora. And then it's going to generate a playlist off of that music, which is really kind of clever. That's coming. I think more social stuff is coming. And we're also going to see the return of visualizations and an equalizer. And the reason I say return is because if you're a Zune user, you'll remember the Zune app for PC had visualizations. And all this it was a play at the time, because Zune was so old, off of screensavers, which were a thing that people used to run on their computers. Screensavers are funny. I love how, by the way, screensavers went away and no one really said anything. But had Microsoft said we're going to deprecate screensavers, I'd see something on Slate about, or MSNBC about how they're killing this loved feature. But yeah, so screensavers aren't a thing. But this was instead of just staring at a screen on your PC with the artist and your music playing, it was a trippy screensaver, and it was a reactive screensaver, so it would react to the music that was playing. Kind of cool, kind of corny, kind of whatever, but it was a neat feature. It was actually, iTunes doesn't have anything like that, neither does Spotify as far as I know. So that is coming back. They've updated the visual features. It looks really kind of cool. No ETA on when that is going to pop up, but it should be very soon. if you're on release preview and or skip ahead, I believe, if you go into your Groove app and go under settings, you should see a setting that says visualizations, but it says it's not enabled at this time. So that's coming back, and probably perhaps a bigger news is the equalizer. So not everybody likes, the music the way it sounds. So they want to adjust the bass, they want to adjust the treble, the mids. You're going to be able to do that soon with the new equalizer feature coming to Groove. Now, it's funny because Nokia and Windows 10 and Windows Phone 8, I should say, had an equalizer for a long time. And it's actually very good. But now it's coming, and for some reason my voice is going out. But this is coming back to Groove. It should be very good stuff. I think these are some features that if you were originally on Zune, you missed, and people have always been lamenting how Groove is just like a shadow of itself. And now you can see the Groove team is reproducing a lot of what's in the Zune app and making it for UWP, and it is slowly but surely getting there. I'm very excited about it. Like I said, I'm a huge Groove user. I do use it on my Android phone. It's still not as good as Windows 10 Mobile, which is funny. So for people who point out that Microsoft hates its own apps, not true. Groove is an exception to that. I'd also say Skype is better in UWP than Android, but it's because they didn't interject that new nonsense that Snapchat crap.
The only real problem I have with Skype UWP is that it's just so ugly. It's such an ugly looking app. It looks so pre-release, and it looked pre-release like a year ago whenever it was introduced. And
I think it looks all right.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
Are you using dark mode or light mode?
I'm using dark. Light mode admittedly looks better than the dark mode does on Skype UWP. But
it's funny how changing. It's a very. I almost forgot when you put it back to light mode how Skype-ish it looks again.
Yeah, exactly. It almost looks like the desktop app.
Yeah. I just don't like it on mobile. It's a little too bright for me. That's why I use dark mode. But on PC, it's actually not that bad. But there is your Groove update for this week. So stay tuned for that. Very exciting stuff. A lot of Groove stuff coming in. For those, I know the question is always going to come up. Family Pass. No word on Family Pass yet. We did see internal documentation referencing a Groove Family Pass. So it is something they know people want. I think it is going to come soon. No actual ETA on it, but I believe they are working on that. So
the fact that Family Pass for Groove is still missing is odd, especially since Microsoft did a really big push on family stuff with the Creators Update and I think the Anniversary Update. Microsoft have revamped their entire Microsoft Family system. If you go to your account website, you can add family members to your account and you can control what they can access and stuff. You can control what money they've got. You can give them money, whatever, so on and so forth in their Microsoft accounts. It's a really complex and really detailed and advanced system. Great for families, obviously. But yeah, no families Groove subscription yet, which is very peculiar.
Yeah, it gets down to that Microsoft account authentication system. Very complicated with Azure and everything else, but yeah, hopefully soon. All right, let's talk about $1,000 smartphones. So probably one of the funniest things, going back to, years ago when rumors of Surface phone. It's not even rumors. It was just dreams, right? People were like, oh, there's Surface, and they make phones at Microsoft. Why don't they make a Surface phone? It just seemed like obvious, And a lot of people pointed out at the time that anything that came out from the Surface team would probably be super expensive. And there was immediate pushback, like they can't sell like a $1,000 phone. No one's going to buy that, And everything was about to push to the bottom at the time. It was the age of the Lumia 520. Android was coming on the scene. And there's still this like, oh my God, you can get this phone for $399. That's still super important. A large segment of the world wants that, needs that. It's a good thing that it's there. But what we are seeing now is just very interesting. Put aside Surface phone, whatever that is, Surface Pocket, whether it ever comes. Let's just even say it's never coming. There is definitely a trend in this industry right now that is starting. And if you're not aware of it, I'm going to make you aware of it because it's super important, which is we're starting to see the rise of what I call ultra premium mobile devices. So the rumor is Apple's new iPhone, they're going to have apparently two iPhones. They're going to have like one that's like a 7S. It's going to be the same form factor with updated internals, kind of that run-of-the-mill, what you expect from Apple, refresh. And then they're going to have like another flagship type device that be possibly the real iPhone 8 to help celebrate their 10th anniversary, which, makes sense. This device is going to have like a near bezel-less display. It's going to have facial recognition. Apparently, they got rid of the fingerprint reader that was built into the display. So they were going to have it so it was just like built right in. But there's a problem evidently with AMOLED displays, which is going to use AMOLED for the first time, where it doesn't work with AMOLED. So that technology is not quite there yet. But so apparently they're going to use facial recognition, rumors of Qi wireless charging, and whatever. It's all new old stuff that Apple's going to invent. But this phone is rumored to be priced at least at $1,000. Some are saying $1,200. We don't really know yet. Of course, it's rumors. But what we do know is Red. And if you don't know who Red are, they make really, really expensive 4K cameras that a lot of professional videographers use. Out of nowhere in July said, hey, we made a phone. We're taking pre-orders now for it. Go to our site and order it up, and sometime in the future, we'll send it to you. And this phone starts at $1,200, and then there's a titanium version for $1,549, I believe. And what's funny about it, it's an Android device. It has some sort of holographic display, so the screen is like 3D-ish. We haven't seen it yet. There's one video out there. Marcus Brownlee has a video, kind of hands-on, of what it looks like. It has a really ridiculous camera on the back, of course, because it's Red. But it runs just standard Android. But we don't know anything about it. No one's tested it. No one's run anything. But they're taking pre-orders for it, and a lot of people are excited. It's just kind of funny. Samsung's Galaxy 8 Note, is that it? Galaxy Note 8?
I think it's the Note 8, yeah.
The Note 8 is, of course, been leaked all over the place. That, too, is speculated to cost $1,000. This is not coincidence, people. Like, there is a general push in mobile technology into this premium high-end range. Companies want it for a couple reasons. One, the margins are higher for them. Samsung does not really want to sell you a $399 phone. The margins on profit for that are so thin. It's the same reason why Apple doesn't do it. But when you start going into that $1,000 range, all of a sudden now you're taking home a bigger chunk of cash. Plus, it actually allows them to do crazier things. And that's what we're seeing now with mobile tech. And we saw it with the Xbox One X, too. And there was this argument, oh, you can't make a gaming console. It's more than $399. And Microsoft said, yeah, we're going to do it anyway. And it's a dumb argument that you can't do this, Now, I'm not saying all smartphones should cost $1,000 going forward. Of course not. What I am saying is there is a market. I haven't installed it yet, a $250 doorbell. This is like, we're getting to weird now, we have like $200 cameras we just put around our house in case, like we're moving into this age of a lot of digital technological stuff. And it makes sense that companies are going to want to push into that high end. It's not a question of, is this happening? It's definitely happening. And the only reason I mention all this is because theoretically, were Microsoft to say release a Surface, what I call Surface Pocket, a Surface phone, or some sort of hybrid folding device that I think is going to merge phablet and tablets and PCs, the argument that it's going to be too expensive is going to be sort of softened. Once in 2018, Apple has their device out there. Samsung has their devices. They're all in the $1,200, $1,400 range. If Microsoft comes out and saying, hey, we got a $1,200 phone, computer thing that fits in your pocket, people aren't going to be like, ridiculous. You'll be kind of used to it. So I'm just saying it's an interesting trend.
Right, and when rumors of the Surface phone being a foldable device first began, well, the most common argument I saw for this device failing was there's no way Microsoft can sell this for a reasonable price in comparison to smartphones. But by looks like luck, Microsoft won't even have to worry about this because Apple and Samsung and Red and other companies are paving the way for this more expensive market of smartphones or ultra mobile devices, or whatever you want to call them, that Microsoft can just now walk into and say, hey, I see your iPhone 8, I see your Red weird camera modular phone. Hey, here's our phone that can fold. It's another kind of device in that market of really expensive smartphones. Now, I know lots of people aren't going to like the sound of this because obviously spending more money is a terrible thing. Everybody wants to save money where they can. But the same time, most people want mobile to be innovative, and the smartphone has stagnated. We've talked about this before. It hasn't really changed since the iPhone in 2007. All phones since then have looked the same, have felt the same. The Lumia 950 XL apes the iPhone in more ways than one. Like the touchscreen, basically, devices, a slab with a touchscreen on it is basically what the iPhone started, and every phone has mimicked that since, and they haven't changed. So if we want this market to change, which we do, we need to allow these companies to start spending, to start charging more money for these devices so they can push the boat out and innovate. Because if we want devices to fold or get smaller or, you know, be embedded into our eyes, that's not cheap. That's you know, Microsoft got to put lots of research into that. All these companies have to put lots of research into that. They've got to figure out how it works, spend years working on it, prototyping it, and then they've got to sell it. And they can't sell that for $600 like you can sell, you know, a Galaxy S8 or an iPhone 7s. Because
and plus, I was going to say, it also has to do with something we don't ever talk about, which is production. So you can't just go like, you know, years ago, OLED screens. Like, I mean, I remember OLED screens being announced like in 2006, 2005. Remember, I think the Moto Flip or whatever it was had like an OLED screen. It was one of the first ones. And there was this question like, that stuff's awesome. Why not just put it everywhere with a display? And there's a reason why, which is it's super expensive and hard to produce these things on a mass level while returning the margins with that investment. In other words, you know, they could have made an OLED TV in 2007. It just would have cost $30,000. It would have been very painstaking to make it. They couldn't mass produce it because you would have to check every pixel. And if you look at, I remember, you know, I bought a Surface Pro 3 years ago. I told the story already. It was a Core i7. I took it home, single dead pixel in it. Now this thing's got like 5 million pixels in it. I still noticed that one pixel. And that was an annoying thing. And that was a common thing where you bought high-end displays. A lot of companies were like, had a policy that said, yeah, you can buy our display. If it has more than 5 dead pixels, we'll refund you. We'll give you an exchange. But anything less than 5 is normal. And people hated that. Go 2017. I haven't bought a device recently that had a dead display. And I'm talking even low-end devices. Like they fixed that, right? Well, they didn't fix that just by magic. Mass producing displays is really hard, which is why LG and Samsung are really the only major manufacturers out there, because you have to have the plants for it and the technology. What I'm saying, though, is when this stuff comes out on the high end, like OLED TVs are still high end right now, but their prices are coming down. I just reviewed this week, and we'll segue into this in a few minutes, the Chewy Lapbook, which has a 12.3-inch display. Excuse me. It's non-touch and it's matte, but it is the same resolution and aspect as a Surface Pro. And in fact, there's a lot of speculation that Chewy's in fact sourcing the same display technology that the Surface Pro uses, since they're all made in China anyway. Well, this laptop costs $300. It's got 5 million pixels in it. Like in 2012, I couldn't buy a high-end laptop with like 5 million pixels in it, let alone a $300 one. So for people lamenting high prices, this argument of trickle-down economics is nonsense in the real world for actual macroeconomics. When it comes to technology, it's 100% accurate. Mm-hmm. You don't notice it because it's very slow, but everything that's super high-end, that's foldable, and all this kind of crazy stuff that costs $1,200 will come down. It's the only reason why this Lumia 520 was so good. It was as this technology improves and gets mass produced, it gets cheaper and it becomes common. The fact that we all own smartphones now is testament to that.
Right, and somebody in our comments actually said, this ties into that very well. The thing that I don't get is that phones are meant to be innovative and open to all people and should be reasonably priced so the mass market can use it. Phones are used to be about helping everyone move forward in the technological age, and now it's just pushing people away for the next best thing. That's true. Phones should be a thing that everybody has access to so we can all communicate with each other around the world. We're not saying that once these new $1,000 phones start hitting the market that all phones will cost $1,000. There are always going to be cheaper alternatives. Now, unfortunately, we don't think Microsoft will be focusing on the cheaper market with its next attempt at Windows Phone. So if you're a Windows Phone fan who are looking to spend no more than $300, bad luck for you. But there will be other companies out there who will continue to sell cheaper phones. And as Dan says, these high-end $1,000 phones with all this awesome tech will eventually come down in price. They'll eventually hit sort of the mid-range area pricing, $600, $500. Then they'll come down even cheaper. That'll just be how it goes in the future. Like, in 20, 30 years when we're all walking around with eyeball phones and stuff, I'm pretty sure the latest iPhone 8 would be like, oh, you can get that for $200 on off contract these days. You know, it's not going to be expensive forever.
Yeah, it's weird. And I'm seeing that pushback, that irrational pushback that's in the game industry too. It's like you can't sell a console for more than $399. Nonsense. Every aspect of technology has price ranges. I could literally go buy a $10,000 TV on Amazon today and have it delivered in 2 days. Like I could do that, or I can go buy a $300 TV and the same thing. Like these ranges exist. Just because there's a $10,000 TV doesn't mean $300 TVs are now, not useful or important or don't exist. The auto industry is the same way. When people are like, same with the Surface laptop, right? I made that analogy. I'm like, Surface laptop is just a really nice laptop. It's no different than going buy an $80,000 car. You get into it, you're like, wow, this is really nice. Does it do anything technically more than my $30,000 car? No, but there's a reason why people buy $80,000 cars. Like, I don't know. I always find this weird how people are like, no, that all works, but not for smartphones, that you can't possibly sell a phone for more than $1,000. That's ludicrous. Absolutely. There's no rational basis in that except your own biases and from what you know.
And for the Surface line of devices, this applies more than ever because Microsoft's Surface line isn't for the general market. I know the Surface laptop is technically an exception to that, but the Surface Pro, the Surface Studio especially, the Surface Hub, they're all devices for niche markets. And we're not expecting the Surface phone to be a smartphone that normal consumers want to pick up and buy. We're expecting it to be a tool or a utility, just like the Surface Studio or the Surface Pro, that a certain kind of person wants. A prosumer, I imagine. Somebody who's on the go, who wants a device in their pocket that could also do more than just be a phone. And that's what we are hearing and expecting Microsoft to be working on when it comes to a Surface phone. Of course, other companies who are charging more than $1,000 may go different routes. We know Apple are basically making the same phone, but with a better screen and facial recognition and higher specs and whatever, which is finally a good thing because Apple have done nothing to their iPhones for a long time at this point. Samsung's obviously doing that whole weird screen thing where they make the screen taller and look more like a piece of glass, which is cool. It's a more aesthetic thing, however. And then Red's just going all out, and they're like, hey, let's just make a phone that's also a camera, that's modular and has 3D screens and stuff. So these companies are going to be trying different things, and we're expecting Microsoft's attempt at that is being an ultra-portable sort of phone that can do more than just be a phone, which is...
Yeah, and I think it's important, too, which is that although we're going to have this category of, again, ultra-premium mobile devices, they're not going to be the same. So Apple is kind of limited. Like basically they're going to just bring iPad Pro features to their phones, I think, right? That's really the only direction it can go. They're not going to merge this with Mac OS, right? That's just not a thing. And we don't really think they're doing a continuum-ish thing yet. Android has a little bit more flexibility in terms of what it can do, but it's still kind of limited. Microsoft has the actual only, I would say, ecosystem or the framework for making truly mobile devices. Now, I saw, this is a little bit on me too, and I'll explain this maybe in a different article, which is, I don't think Microsoft's trying to make a literal PC for your pocket. So take my GPD Pocket review that I did this week with the 7-inch Pocket PC thing. That's a Windows PC in your pocket. That is literally what that is, right? I don't think that's Microsoft's goal. I think what they want to do is they want to take aspects of mobile, what they can bring from laptops and tablets and phablets, and create a mobile device that makes the best of both worlds. It's going to be a new, unique experience. And that's hard for people to think about because we're so regimented into like, that's a phone, that's a tablet, that's a laptop. And you can't sort of think of like, well, why don't you create a new device that had some features from all of those? And also we brought in some new technology, new stuff that, did something different. So, and for people who are like, well, I like my PC. Why, isn't this going to, cannibalize Microsoft's own PC sales? I don't really think so because at the end of the day, it's still a tool. So the phone mobile thing that whatever Microsoft's going to work on will do its own thing. It'll be its own, just like the Surface Pro was its own thing. But you could have a Surface Pro and still I need a Surface Studio, you could still have different. So if you're a gaming, if you game, right, and you want an SLI 1080 video cards and 7.1 surround sound, no matter what Microsoft creates in the Surface that's pocketable is ever going to compete with that. Not in the next, couple of years at least. So there is still going to be these distinctions for these categories. There's still going to be reasons why you're going to want that device. Same reason why Surface Pro, I think it's cool. I still use Surface Laptop a lot, though, because I just like that form factor. So this isn't going to whatever they're going to create, it's going to be something new and different that you really haven't thought of. And I think that's going to be the real cool thing here is Apple appears to be making a high-end phone, kind of iPad Pro thing. Samsung's doing its Android, whatever. Red is doing its just, Red is making a super high-end camera phone, which is awesome, right? A lot of people are going to use that. But I don't know. Everybody's doing their own kind of unique thing. I'm just excited about this category because we'll see interesting stuff.
I also think a lot of people who are reading into Surface Phone and hoping for a Surface Phone are expecting a phone that can compete with iPhone and Android. But that's not the kind of device Microsoft is making, I don't think. Microsoft are making, like I said, a device similar to the Surface Pro and Surface Studio that's aimed at a certain kind of person. The Surface Studio was never designed to be the best all-in-one PC that everybody is going to go out and buy. It was never designed for that. And Microsoft knows that. And Microsoft built that product knowing that and would... So if it sells, I don't know, if it has only a tiny bit of market share compared to all the other services and indeed all the other all-in-ones on the market... That doesn't matter. It's not what Microsoft isn't out there to gain all the market share from other all-in-ones there. So if Microsoft are to make a Surface Phone and that Surface Phone is bought by only a certain amount of people or a certain type of person, it's not going to be bought by teenagers, I don't think, because teenagers are using Snapchat. They're using Snapchat and all that good stuff. That's not going to be on a Surface Phone.
The perfect example for this is the original BlackBerry. So original BlackBerries were carried by corporate execs and like super nerdy IT people who actually needed it. You couldn't even go and just get a BlackBerry plan. It was like a whole thing, right? It wasn't like, oh, go to Sprint, I'm just going to get a phone. Like you had to have a Bez server and like it was just not practical for the consumer masses. Yet we all kind of wanted one, right? And eventually that became real in the sense that teenagers did go buy BlackBerries for a long time because they wanted the chat features and stuff. But that's what that device was. That was a device that was, we all saw BlackBerries and we're like, I don't really need that, but that'd be kind of cool to have, And that's what I think, whatever, like what you're saying, whatever Microsoft creates here is not going to be a device that every mom and dad are going to want to go buy. They're not going to try to get 90% market share. This is going to be a device that you're going to see. You're going to be like, that's really cool. I don't really know if I need that, but I wouldn't mind having that. And that's really neat, And it's like, or I really like that device. I would like to have that. I can't afford it. And that's where companies like HP, hopefully, and Dell would step in and be like, well, here's our take on this and what we're doing. And like I said, things like Seashell, Windows 10 on ARM, Windows 10S, the new Snapdragon processors, all this stuff coming out. Like if you can't see how Microsoft is creating this complete modular ecosystem where companies could go, all right, we'll take this, we'll take this, we'll take that, and we're going to make this really cool flip device that does this. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's all in front of you right now. All the pieces there. Like, all we're waiting on is for OEMs now to start putting this stuff together and start selling it. But I'm pretty excited about this. Even if it all fails, like, it's just an exciting time for technology.
And I think it'll be clear once the Surface Phone, whatever it is, does get unveiled. It's a beginning for Microsoft. It's not the ultimate. Here's the thing that we're going to design, and this is going to be the future for everybody. The Surface Phone at first will be a beginning. This is Microsoft's approach to mobile. This is what they're looking at. This is how we're going to do it. And then over time, of course, as Dan says, more and more people will look at that and go, hey, hopefully, they'll go, hey, that's an awesome idea. And then down the line, it will get cheaper and more people will be able to buy it and it'll become more approachable. And then, like in the BlackBerry instance, they'll say, hey, actually, we'll make that a bit easier to use and whatever, and so on and so forth. Now, we're not saying that the Surface Phone will require you to set up servers and stuff to use. That's not what we're saying. But the idea is that it will change my audience. Hopefully, it will change your audience down the line. But if Surface Phone comes out next year and, like, the media doesn't care, or people go, wow, but then never buy it, just like the Surface Studio, that's not a fail. And not in Microsoft eyes.
Right. As far as and I see people keep bringing this app thing up. Zach and I don't believe this is going to run Windows 10 on ARM. We think it's going to actually run Windows 10.
Well, it might be an ARM processor, but it could be full Windows 10 or some kind of full Windows 10 with mobile elements. We're still hearing odd stuff about what it'll be running. So it will likely be an ARM-based processor, but since Microsoft is working on Windows 10, on full Windows 10 on ARM, which is basically emulation of Win32 programs and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if Surface Phone could run full Windows 32 programs.
I'm not even convinced necessarily that they're going to say to buy this, throw out your iPhone.
No,
I mean that's
it's not. I don't think they're going to market it as a phone. I think it would be stupid for them to come out and say, "Here is a phone." They should not. They should advertise this as a tablet first and foremost. They bring it out as a tablet. Here's all the tablet features. It's a small tablet. You do all the good normal tablet stuff with it. Then, just like the Surface Book unveiling, they go watch the video again, and at the end of the video, it closes and it turns into. It's still going to be something like that. It's just going to be an additional thing that it can do. It's not going to be It's not. Well, I mean, it will be its star feature, of course, but it won't be what Microsoft is. It won't be marketed as the phone first and foremost. It'll be a tablet that can also be a phone, not a phone that can be a tablet. I feel anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And I think people really need to get out of this mindset that this thing is going to come out. They're going to be like, throw away your iPhone, throw away your Android device. This is it. This is all you need. It's not going to be that. It's going to be a device you can carry around. I think some people, Zach and I, probably would be able to be like, hey, this is our phone now, and use it like that. But I agree. I think it's going to be used as a productivity device. You're going to want to take it around. You're going to want to use a pen on it for taking notes. It'll be a full computer. You'll be able to do Skype. You can probably do phone calls. We've seen the dialer before in Windows 10. It's not like a crazy thing. And you'll get the benefits of UWP, which we all know is continuing to grow. It's slower than some people would like, but it is definitely improving. And I don't know. There's definitely an opportunity there for that. It's not like people carry around one device these days. They like to have multiple devices for different things.
A lot of people carry on phones and tablets. I mean, I know the tablet space is technically dying. I don't think it's dying. I think people just have a tablet and they don't need to buy a new one every year. Like the iPad.
Well, because there's no difference in that. There's not much difference. The only benefit with tablets is it's larger, nicer to look at compared to a smartphone.
Like a tablet is great for just lounging around at home and just browsing the web. Like I don't have a tablet that's good for that because I don't have an iPad because I hate Apple, obviously. And Microsoft doesn't have a good alternative to that for Windows. So Windows is not great on tablets right now, and we all know that. Seashell should hopefully fix that. That emphasis on hopefully. But using a tablet or an iPad around the house is so much more convenient and just quicker than it is to use a laptop, for example. I mean, when you want to get real work done, of course, you switch to a laptop. So imagine having a phone that, it's a phone outside, but then when you just want to lounge around or do a little bit of work on the go in a car or something, that can fold out into a tablet with a bit more screen real estate. You can hook up a Bluetooth keyboard to it. That turns into full desktop experience with the Seashell stuff. Or do a Skype video call on it, and you fold it up, and it holds itself up. I don't know. Right. There's like a lot of cool stuff that can be done exactly. Here. There's a whole. It could do so many things. For again, not for everybody in the world, but for the niche market where this phone will be aimed at. Prosumers, people who like working on the go, people who love Windows Phone and have money. It's gonna target a few people, but it won't be the world.
Yeah, and two things I just want to... People who are asking, can it run WhatsApp? All right, if you're asking about that, you probably are not the right demographic for this device to begin with.
Right.
Sorry, WhatsApp is still regarded as a millennial thing. It's not something people who would probably buy this device would be their first question. Number two, it's kind of who cares in the sense of that's a solvable problem. Like, it's not like if they release this device, WhatsApp is just like, we could never make an app for that. Like, if they want to, and if Microsoft wants them to, they can make an app. That's literally a solvable problem. Now, getting there is another issue, of course, but that's not insurmountable, right? But I don't know. A lot of people who I know use WhatsApp aren't in the United States, and they're not going to be able to afford.
The WhatsApp issue will be a bigger deal in the European markets, which, let's be fair, no Microsoft Surface Phone won't even launch in Europe straight away. But if Surface Phone does launch in Europe eventually, and it doesn't have WhatsApp, I can see that being an issue for quite a few people. But at the same time, for those asking, will WhatsApp work on the phone, on the Surface Phone? The current WhatsApp app that you have on Windows Phone, no. That is a Silverlight app, and as we already know, Microsoft's next attempt at Windows on phones or mobile devices will not support Silverlight apps, and that includes WhatsApp. That doesn't mean Microsoft can't strike up a deal with WhatsApp to make a UWP app. And if Microsoft really wants to get this phone idea they've got off the ground with their next attempt, which I'm sure they do, I don't see why they would be putting effort into it if they didn't. I'm sure that they can. I'm sure they're having words with WhatsApp and a few other developers who have big name apps and saying, "Hey, we're building this awesome product. would you like to build a native app for the Windows 10 platform? Because again, they can sell it as it'll work not only on this device, it works on desktop and Xbox and whatever else you want it to work on. It's a UWP app, and I'm sure if Microsoft I'm sure Microsoft can be very sort of persuasive in this regard.
So, and also I want to point out that the issue with WhatsApp is it's tied to cellular, right? You need a phone number to make it work, which is why we haven't seen a PC UWP app for it, because it's kind of weird. And that's on WhatsApp, right? But what's coming out end of 2017? Cellular PCs, right? This whole Windows 10 on ARM thing, this new genre of small clamshell laptop-like devices that will have eSIM technology, and all of a sudden the light should be going off here, right? That like, oh, well, that device now could technically run WhatsApp, right? So it has a phone number, it'll have cellular capabilities. Now the UWP argument starts to become more realistic. I think if this idea of cellular PCs becomes a small but important segment of the PC world, then the driving force for a UWP WhatsApp that utilizes it, I think, becomes a lot more clear.
So Surface Phone confirmed.
Yes.
No, we still have no confirmation of a Surface Phone in the works. We've heard some things, and obviously we've seen the patents and stuff. It's looking a lot like a Surface Phone is on the way that does fold and whatever. But until Microsoft makes an official announcement, they are just rumors.
Right. All right. Tell us about your Asus E200 review.
So yes, as we all know, I'm very fascinated with low-end. See, we're transitioning from $1,000 phones to $200 laptops, just how we like it on Windows Central. I'm fascinated with low-end devices because I like seeing how OEMs are able to sort of cut corners and keep prices low whilst trying to build a usable product. And not all OEMs can do it. Some OEMs will build the cheapest thing possible and it's rubbish. It can't be usable. It's ugly screen, feels horrible to hold. Some of them aren't so bad. HP, for example, with their Streamliner devices, they are some quality, low-cost devices. And up until today or yesterday, whenever I published the review, the HP Stream 11 X360 held the crown for best cheap. I think the Stream is a little bit more than the Asus. We'll get to that in a minute. Well, best cheapish Windows 10 laptop, which the Stream 11 I think is $250. Maybe you probably get it for less now. But then this week I reviewed the Asus E200 HA, and that is a sub $200 laptop. That is $199, and I think it's the best cheap Windows 10 laptop you can buy. It is a small device, so again, if you can't stand small screens, this is an 11.6 inch screen, then this won't be for you. You want to aim a little bit higher for the more bigger screen devices, which I have reviewed, by the way. The Fusion 5, for example, is one of those laptops, which was also sub $200 actually, and it was a full 14.1 inches. But regards to the Asus, for 11.6 inches, this device looks and feels really nice, especially design-wise. Most low-cost laptops look gross in every way, shape, and form. They're like, you can tell it's a low-cost device. They didn't put much effort into its design. With the Asus E200 HA, it looks like, from a distance, it looks like an Ultrabook, but up close, obviously, it still looks like a really nice laptop. It is plastic, but depending on the coating you get, like you can get it in gold. Although the gold, to me at least, looks a little bit more silvery than gold. In the store listings, it looks really gold, but it doesn't look that gold in real life. So actually, it looks really nice in comparison. It also reminds me of slightly of like the space gray MacBook, which most would argue is a beautiful looking laptop. The Asus, this E200 is not a bad looking laptop at all. When you open it, it's got a black keyboard, it's got a large trackpad, surprisingly large for this screen size and price bracket. The trackpad is really nice. It's not precision, which obviously sucks, but then again, all of these low cost devices don't have precision trackpads. This is one of the better trackpads I've tried on a sub $200 laptop. In fact, I'd argue it's the best one. The scrolling's a little bit iffy, but apart from that, you're like using it when just to navigate around the screen. Looks and feels great. Keyboard is probably one of the worst areas of this laptop. It's an 11.6 inch keyboard, so it's a smaller keyboard for one, but it's also smaller in height ever so slightly. So the keys are not perfect squares; they are slightly shorter in height, which really puts you off when you're typing on like a Word essay or a document. So basically, it took me a lot longer than usual to learn or to get familiar with the keyboard on the 200 HA. The screen is also not great. I've seen better screens on similarly priced laptops. For example, the Stream 11 X360 has a great display, which is touchscreen or whatever. The Asus E200 doesn't have a touchscreen. It's a 1366 by 768 display, which isn't great. Yeah, it's not great. And it's also hasn't very good viewing angles either. So you basically, if you're not looking at it dead on, it's going to start looking washed out and gross. And it also has that
HP SureView.
Yeah, it
built right in.
I guess you could look at it like that. It's it also has that issue that a lot of low-end laptops have, which is the display looks slightly murky and slightly dirty. It's not a dirty display. It's just I don't know what it is. I guess it's how the screen is bonded with the front panel, whatever. But it just looks a little bit. Very slightly murky. If you won't notice it just normally, but if you're looking at the screen like up close, you will see the screen looks a little bit murky and a little bit gross. But apart from that, speakers are great. They're nice and loud. Trackpad, as I said, is pretty awesome. The design is pretty great. Battery life, superb. That lasts me for a full day pretty easily. This is an Intel Atom-based PC with 2 gigabytes, which in most cases is normal. But this also has a 4 gigabyte option. The Amazon link I had on the review actually links to the 4 gigabyte option for $200, which is really nice. So I definitely recommend the 4 gigabyte one. But overall, yeah, I really like this laptop. As long as you have if you have your expectations set at this is a $200 device. It has an Intel Atom in it with 2 or 4 gigabytes of RAM. It's not going to get much done. But if you're these devices are for people who casually use their laptops for browsing the web, checking email, and maybe watching a YouTube video or two. These aren't powerhouses like the Surface Laptop or Surface Book. So if you have your mind in the right area when you buy these devices are great. And honestly, I feel like the E200 is one of the best low-end laptops you can buy.
So can it play Crysis?
No.
It will have a Crysis if you try to play. And I guess that segues, nicely to the Chewy review I did, which is another budget laptop, slightly more expensive at $300 to $350. But I'd argue a better deal, maybe. I don't know. 12.3-inch display, 3:2 aspect ratio. So I'm super stoked about that. Yeah. Microsoft obviously started a 3:2 thing with the Surface Pro years ago, and now it's in all their devices, including my giant Surface Studio here, which is, I just love the 3:2 aspect ratio. I think it looks really, really nice. And what we hadn't seen for a while was other OEMs start jumping in on it. And part of that was because it was hard, right? Again, getting back to the display stuff, even if you're like, a Chinese manufacturer and you're going to make a laptop, you can't just go to Samsung and be like, hey, we want this customized display at 3:2 aspect ratio. Like, it would cost a fortune to do that. What's happening now, though, is because Microsoft is making screens and they're kind of laying around, and they can go to these display manufacturers and buy those components and make that happen. So now you're starting to see other companies do it. HP's getting in on it with their Surface-like device, the Elite X2. And so I'm really excited about that. I like it. It's great to see in a budget laptop that costs, $300. So it's a matte non-touch display. This isn't a true through and through laptop, but I love the matte display because you can just look at it all day. Unlike Zach's screen here, this is a really, really good screen. This is super high resolution. It's 27, whatever the Surface Pro is, 27 by, I forgot, 1840 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost a 3K screen, so almost 5 million pixels.
How much is this laptop?
Between $300 and $350.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, like I said, it's a Surface Pro display. Just instead of glossy, it's matte and it's non-touch, but it's the same. I mean, and I don't even mean in the sense of like, okay, it's the same resolution, same aspect ratio. I ran a screen calibration, and I run Spider 5, which is like a $300 thing. It came out 99% sRGB. Like, that's actually higher than Surface Pro. So, and that's probably because it doesn't have the digitizer in front of it. So it actually has a little bit less going on there. That is ridiculous. Like, getting back to what Zach was saying with his, a lot of times you buy budget laptops and this screen is like, it's either acceptable or it looks okay, but when you try to use, for color accuracy, it fails, right? 99% sRGB is super high. Even for a premium laptop, if you spent $1,400 and now you said it was 99%, I'd be like, oh, nice, But even then, it's not necessarily expected. That is super impressive. It also gets, I believe, was 77% Adobe RGB. Again, high, slightly higher than Surface Pro. So this is a really good display. And evenly backlit. It just looked really nice. Now the bezels are a little bit thick on this device, which is, hey, this is a $300 laptop. It's what you get. Keyboard is really good. It had a lot of travel. Not backlit keys, of course. Trackpad, this is where they all sort of run into their problems. So it's not even, it's a trackpad physically. It's using mouse drivers, which means there's no trackpad settings for it. This is how they cut costs, by the way. If you even forget precision, if you want Synaptics, you still need to buy Synaptics hardware and Synaptics software, and that's not cheap. That's going to be passed on to the customer. That's where they cut corners. But I will say, I've reviewed a few Chewy devices before. This is their best trackpad yet. I actually didn't hate this one at all, so that's good. But pretty good battery life, 5 to 6 hours, nothing crazy, but it's enough to get by. What's really cool, though, on the bottom of this thing, it has a little trap door, and you pry it off, and it's an M2 slot, and it runs a 2242 M2, which is, if you ever seen when I do my SSD replacement guides, they look like chewing sticks of gum. That's not what this is. These are, they're like that, but they're cut in half. They're just smaller squares, and you can buy them cheap on Amazon. They're, I think, between $70 for 128 gigs and probably $115 for 256 gigs. But you can take it, it's SATA 3, so it's actually pretty performant. You just take this little card, drop it in, and attach it with a screw, and then put this door on it. And now you just went from 64 gigs of internal storage to 256 gigs of performance like storage. Like this would be better than an SD card, right? That's cool. I've never seen that before. A lot of times, I know people in our audience are like, oh yeah, add more memory to a laptop. You just pop up the back, and you see my guides. But newsflash, normal people don't like taking apart their $1,000 laptop, let alone a $300 one. You don't know what you're getting into. But this, it takes all that mystery out of it. You just literally drop this card in. Super cool. It's also got some really nice ports. It's got 2 USB ports, one 3.0, one 2.0. It's got HDMI and stuff like that. But it's a nice device. For $300, I thought it was cool. It's all solid CNC aluminum. Feels solid. It only weighs 3 pounds. Good job on Chewy here. And, we'll be doing more. I have another device that's coming called the Cube. It was recommended to me by Windows Blog Italia. We Italians stick together, They told me about this device. It's a $500 laptop. So now you're getting a little more expensive. But this has a touchscreen, and it's pen enabled, and I believe a precision trackpad. So it's like all that stuff I just talked about that this one doesn't have. This one does. And of course, the price goes up by $200. So that's what you get. Now, right. $200 for some people, not a big deal, but that's almost literally doubling the price of the Chewy. So that's why when you get to the low budget stuff, that stuff matters.
Mm.
Yeah.
I feel like there are tiers of low budget, because obviously you can get $200, sub $200 laptops, which are the lowest you can really go before it starts getting just incredibly unusable. Which is where the Asus shines. The 200 is probably the best sub $200. If we're getting into the $300 area, I would say the Chewy is probably the best. Then if we're getting up to 400, 500, well, maybe not the best, but it's up there with one of the good 300.
There's a lot of good stuff out there now. Xiaomi is doing some cool stuff too. Oh, right. By the way, people are asking, is it pronounced Chewy? I don't know. It's CHUWI for those listening to us. Right. I'm pronouncing that Chewy. Chewy?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I would assume it's pronounced. We're probably wrong. Let's be fair. We probably are wrong on that, but well.
You haven't corrected me. So,
no.
But yeah, there you go. So cool stuff. If you're on a budget, never better time right now to buy a Windows 10 PC. Some really, I say this as someone like who uses the Surface laptop decked out, right? When I was using this device, I show it to other IT people and friends of mine they're like, damn, that's really nice. Like it's a, like I said, it's trickle-down technology, folks. All this super high-end stuff will benefit the people who can't afford it in the long run. Not even the long run, a year or two. It's cool stuff.
Jen says we should have a cool/not cool wall like in Top Gear. That'd be a great idea. We can have like
I don't know what that means.
Basically, in the old Top Gear series, they used to have a wall where they'd have cars and they'd have different columns on the wall. And if it was a cool car, it'd be on like the cool side. If it was an uncool car, you'd put it on the uncool side. We should have that for laptops. That's such a great idea. Basically, the joke, the running joke for the wall was that if it's a supercar, it's immediately not cool. But then
really?
all like the mid-range or the lower price cars that people actually buy get put into the cooler area. But yeah,
interesting. Well, I think that about does it. So for next week, oh, I got a few things coming up. Actually, I will have a video review for the Chewy Lapbook 12.3. We shot that this week. It'll probably go up Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. So if you want to see more of that device in action, in Dan action, you can wait for that. I do have a video review up now for the GPD Pocket because a lot of people want to see what that was like in 60 frame per second HD video. So that is now available on our YouTube channel. Go check that out. For this coming week, I will be reviewing that Asus Zen screen. It's a portable 15.6-inch display, which is weird. I never thought when Kevin Michaluk, one of our, runs Crackberry and one of our senior members here at Mobile Nations, told me about this. It never dawned on me that you can actually make a full-on 15-inch display that's just portable now. That weighs 1.5 pounds and it just folds up and it has a single core. Like when I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, that's totally possible. Laptops are like that and tablets are like that now. But that's what this is. It's just a portable display and it's real first world problems. But I'll be reviewing that. I also have, I'll just show this quickly, spoiler alert here. But this is the new Razer Lancehead mouse. And it's so cool. Gaming mouse, wireless or wired, runs 2.4 gigahertz. They use packet optimization technology. If you're a gamer and you don't use wireless mice because you're like, oh my God, I lose so much data. I'm not one of those poor people. I need it wired. This apparently solves that by prioritizing the data from the mouse to your computer. It does have a little dongle, but basically you can use this wireless and you're not going to lose accuracy. So I'll be reviewing that. If you're seeing the video right now, Zach loves the front. It looks like a jet engine. I love Razer stuff. And it's glowing. If you're actually watching this video right now, you'll see the colors are fading. Yes, it has full chroma lighting because that's how
overkill for a laptop.
That's so cool. I love it.
Even.
But even as a non-gamer right now, this is just a comfortable mouse. It's a really comfortable mouse. It has 8 buttons. But stay tuned for my full review of that. Very cool stuff. Zach, what do you have coming up for next week?
Oh, I don't know. All sorts. I'm going to be doing a little, as I said earlier, a detailed review or in-depth look at the eye tracking stuff, which I think might be coming this week, actually, probably today or tomorrow. I'm also going to try and write an entire article with the eyeball stuff. No hands-off keyboard. It's going to take a while, I imagine, but I'm going to try and do it. And,
there's a few famous people who have done that.
I imagine so. I imagine there are people out there who have to do that. They've got no choice. So I'm going to try it and see what it's like. And I've got some other stuff probably, but can't talk about it yet.
Nice. Oh, do you have insider stuff coming out?
Possibly. I mean,
and we don't mean Windows Insider. We mean Zach Insider.
Only the best from Zach Insider.
Oh, Microsoft's going to get mad.
Right, moving right along.
All right, so that sounds good. You can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, R-U, B as in boy, I-N-O, and follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. We'll take your comments and questions there. For those of you listening to live, we'll now do, of course, our Q&A session. If you're listening to this recorded, apologies for that. Tune us in on Fridays at 2:30. Yeah, I can't talk anymore. Listen to us Fridays, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on mixer.com/Windows Central. Otherwise, you can also join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. where me, Zach, and Jez, our gaming guru, will get together and play video games. This week we did Wildlands, which was just a lot of fun playing. But we'll do another game this week, and we give away codes, and it's just a fun time. So tune in for that. Thanks everybody for listening to us and putting up with our rants again. But there you go. Take care, everybody.